Your motion to dismiss with prejudice is granted.
The Alec Baldwin trial dismissed. We're going to break it down in this emergency sidebar episode right now with Palm Beach County State Attorney Dave Aronberg. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. All right, so we have an emergency sidebar right now because it was only minutes ago the judge in Alec Baldwin's involuntary manslaughter trial out in New Mexico dismissed his case with prejudice because of a discovery violation. The prosecution did not turn over a significant piece of evidence to the defense. We're going to break it down. Remember, he was facing involuntary manslaughter charge for the shooting of Halyna Hutchins, that cinematographer on the Rust set back in October 2021. The allegation is that he pulled the trigger. He was acting negligently. He was acting recklessly on that movie set. And there was some serious evidence against him. Now, of course, there was defense arguments that he didn't pull the trigger, that he was an actor on the film. It wasn't his responsibility. All of that is put to the side because this case has now been dismissed with prejudice. I want to bring in Palm Beach County State Attorney Dave Aronberg on this. Dave, thanks so much for jumping on this emergency podcast. Shocking development. What do you make of it?
Shocking, because to get a case dismissed with prejudice, meaning
and what does that mean? Yeah, that means that you can't refile it. He can't be charged again.
Nope, he's done. He gets to walk free. And to get that dismissed, you have to show some misconduct. And the judge apparently said there was misconduct here.
This came out during cross-examination yesterday of a crime scene technician that apparently a witness came forward during the course of Hannah Gutierrez Reed's trial, but then went to the sheriff's office after her trial, that he had ammunition that he says was relevant to the case, ammunition that he says could be matched up to the ammo, the actual ammo that killed Halyna Hutchins. And the allegation put forward by the defense was it was buried by law enforcement. And it was buried by the prosecution because it was put in a separate file. It wasn't even listed as part of the Rust case evidence. And the defense said, this is totally unfair that this wasn't disclosed to us. And yesterday during cross-examination of this crime scene technician, they asked her about this. And today, the prosecutor, Carrie Morrissey, decided to take the stand and talk about her involvement in this ammunition. But you know what's so interesting about it, Dave? It's not even, I would say, a significant issue in Alec Baldwin's legal case, right? Because he wasn't charged with bringing live ammo to the set or loading the weapon.
We don't even know who brought the live ammo. Now, the state is suggesting it was Hannah Gutierrez Reed, the armorer, who messed up and accidentally brought live ammo. Alec Baldwin was not charged with intentionally trying to kill anyone. He wasn't charged for knowingly having live ammo. He was charged with being careless with the gun. You shouldn't point a gun that you even believe is not loaded and pull the trigger. And that's why the prosecution said, well, this other stuff is not relevant. That's why we didn't report it to the defense. And the defense and the judge said that it's not up to prosecutors to decide what is relevant and what is not. And then when they found out that law enforcement had this information, had this ammunition, and deliberately put a different case number on it, that's where I think this thing went off the rails.
So you believe the prosecution made a serious mistake here? They should have turned this over to the defense. I don't know when the defense, by the way, found out about this information, because if they found out about it a while ago, shouldn't they have brought this up before trial?
Yeah, I mean, it was mentioned during cross-examination, but it's not clear whether that's when they learned about it or that's where they decided this is something to be pursued. Remember, right. The defense came back and they said, well, this pertains to our defense. This is relevant because we would have argued differently in the opening that this was intentional sabotage, that the guy who runs this PDQ firm, which is who supplies the ammunition, thought that the set
to the Rust
so
set,
chaotic,
to the Rust set, yeah.
To the Rust set, right? They supply ammunition to Rust and other sets, and that he, the villain, and I forget the guy's name offhand, but he was the villain in this.
Seth Kenny.
Seth Kenny, that's right. Good, Jesse, I can always count on you, man. Seth Kenny, and his villain origination story here is that he had it out for Hannah Gutierrez Reed as some unqualified armor, and he had it out for the people on the Rust set because they were chaotic, and he was going to show them, look, he was able to get live ammunition on the set, not thinking it would kill someone, but to prove a point. And he is the reason why this all occurred, another intervening cause, and that's why Alec Baldwin was sort of an innocent victim himself here.
Right.
And the judge said, probably thought, well, that's sort of a reach, that whole defense, but maybe they could have mentioned that defense, and they didn't like the way the judge didn't like the way the prosecution dealt with this.
And what? So it wasn't up to prosecutors to determine whether something was relevant or exculpatory. They had a duty to give this evidence over to the defense. And I could tell during the questioning by the judge of the lead investigator in this case, she was angry. She was upset about how this evidence was handled. And so much so that when she dismissed the case in her order, she said this was too significant. It was too material to the case. There's no remedy that can correct it other than dismissing the case. But why dismiss it with prejudice? Why did she dismiss it with prejudice? And that means that Alec Baldwin cannot be charged any longer in connection with this shooting?
Correct. The reason why they dismissed with prejudice is because the judge, I think, believed that the prosecutor was in with the law enforcement officials in hiding this information. Apparently, this was not a mistake. This was something where they knew they had something that could be relevant, and they intentionally withheld it from the defense. And I think the key bit of information here is that law enforcement assigned it a different case number. Why would you assign it a different case number? Because the ammunition, it was discovered, matched the ammunition on the set of Rust. And that's something I still don't understand, Jesse. Maybe as we learn more, we'll figure out why the prosecution agreed with the law enforcement officials to assign it a different case number where it could not be found, where this looked like it was something nefarious.
Right.
And the other thing is this. I think the judge punished the prosecutor because the prosecutor here is a special prosecutor, someone who was assigned to the case by the current DA from the outside. And it was someone who's an experienced criminal defense lawyer, someone who knows better. So this isn't like some rookie DA, some rookie assistant DA who screwed up.
And by the way, this case was plagued with issues from the very beginning. How Alec Baldwin was charged. He was first hit with a criminal enhancement charge. That was thrown out. The charges were dropped. The charges were refiled. Prosecutors left the case. Did you know that we found out today that Erlinda Johnson, who delivered the opening statements in this case a few days ago, resigned? She resigned because she had a problem, apparently, with this hearing, this motion to dismiss hearing, being held in a public forum. What did you make of that?
Yeah, I saw that she resigned, and perhaps that was another consciousness of guilt. And the judge, one of the reasons why the judge decided hey, let's end this thing. I don't know. And I think we'll know more as the days progress. We're doing this video right after the verdict here, right after the dismissal, and it's all very shocking. And I think there's going to be more ramifications because this is not supposed to happen. If there was a problem, it should have been just dismissed without prejudice, redo it. But here, the judge is punishing the prosecutors.
And to be clear, I think it also was because during cross-examination of Carrie Morrissey, the prosecutor, Alex Spiro pointed to a series of communications where she was calling Alec Baldwin very derogatory names. And you can't have a prosecutor show that kind of bias, right? You could say, look, we're prosecuting a case against him. We think the evidence is strong against him. But if you're alleging that all they're going to do is hide evidence and bury evidence and do whatever they need to prosecute Alec Baldwin, and you're calling him names, I think that's what also led the judge to dismiss this case with prejudice, that this entire prosecution is tainted.
It's a fair point. Now, were both prosecutors calling him names, or was it just the head prosecutor?
I think it was just Carrie Morrissey.
Yeah. And, she knows better. She's experienced. She did a great job with the Hannah Gutierrez Reed case. And this reminds me of Detective Proctor in the Karen Reed case. Whenever you start spouting off about people's looks or that they're privileged, it is a bad look. You can't really do that when you're on our side. Now, if you're on the defense side, they do that stuff all the time, and we have to sit and take it, grin and bear it. But when you're on the side of justice, your goal is not supposed to be to get a conviction in every case. It's not supposed to ring someone up. It's supposed to do justice. You're supposed to be blind about who you'll have in front of you and treat everyone the same. Well, it didn't look like that here.
Well, I'm so glad you said that, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on, because as a prosecutor, when you see people who engage in wrongdoing in your level, in a prosecutorial level, that is really problematic. And clearly that's what the judge saw here. What happens now to Hannah Gutierrez Reed's trial, her case? Is that overturned now?
No, it shouldn't be affected. Now, that evidence could have been admitted into Hannah Gutierrez Reed's case. You can anticipate a motion to come. But Halyna Gutierrez is still in incarceration, still behind bars, and she's got several more months to go in her sentence. So it does give her a ray of hope that perhaps that verdict will be revisited, but it has no immediate impact. It's not like this happens and now she goes
right. But I think she has a stronger argument, because the issue of who brought the ammunition to the set, where it came from, was more significant for her trial than it was for Baldwin's. The allegation was she brought the live rounds, that she loaded the gun with the live rounds. If it could be shown that, wait a minute, this came from Seth Kenney or it came from another source, not only do I think the evidence is more relevant, if this was an issue where it wasn't brought to the defense attention, or they didn't have an opportunity to further this out, I think there's a chance her conviction could be overturned.
You know, it's a fair point. By the time they get to that, she'll already have had at least a good part of her sentence already served. But I do think that that's going to be a motion probably you'll see ASAP by her lawyers.
Oh, you don't think that conviction would be overturned in like a month?
Yeah, I mean, it could. Keep in mind, the ammunition we're talking about here was not the ammunition that was used in the case. This was not in the shooting of Halyna Hutchins. We're talking.
Do we know?
Ammunition.
Do we know? We don't know for sure.
Well, remember the reason why the prosecutors did not even bring it up, thought it was irrelevant, was that it was not used. And if it was the ones used, then case closed. So, I don't think it's necessarily. I mean, you could have an analysis, an investigation. But it's not automatic that this is going to overturn Halyna Gutierrez Reed's case. But it does help the defense to try it.
We'll see. Dave Arenberg, thank you so much for coming on to this emergency sidebar. And everybody out there, thank you so much for joining us here on Sidebar. Please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. Speak to you next time.